Okay, next lesson. So what we are going to do now is we are going to kind of extend what we know about radical equations and just throw a little more at you as far as things that are going on the side with the radical and on the other side of the equation as well. So you'll have a couple more steps with these, and then we're also going to look at an application problem because believe it or not, radical equations are used in quite a wide variety of real world equations. And one that really jumps out to my mind is when they figure out standard deviation for like data sets, and what that kind of tells you. Standard deviation is a measure they use to sort of say, okay, this is kind of an average, and then for your data set, you have a certain amount of possible error, right? And the standard deviation kind of tells you that, and so they calculate that using radical equations. So these are things that are used not just in the math room. So let's get started and just do a few more of these today, shall we? All right, so looking for my cursor here. Here we go. So what this says is when there's more than just a variable under a radical, we're going to isolate and eliminate the radical, then solve until the variable is isolated. All right, so that's kind of what we were doing. It's just a little more to it. And now we actually have things under the radical other than just a variable. But don't panic about it because it's still kind of the same process. You're just going to have one more step after your squaring or cubing step than what you were accustomed to. Okay, so now when we solve this, all right, we're going to kind of start the same way. All right, so I'm going to grab a pen tool here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a fence, and I'm going to switch to a less annoying color of ink. All right, so we've got black going now. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get rid of this 4. And the reason I want to get rid of this 4 is because I know I'm going to have to get rid of this radical first, right? So in order to do that, I got to have that side with the radical kind of cleaned up. So 7 minus 4 is 3. We add the square root of x plus 2, right? I'll make sure I put this over so we can clearly see it. Now the next step I'm going to do, okay, is just like the last lesson, right, the previous lesson. If I'm going to get rid of this, right, my index on this is 2, okay, it's a square root. So I'm going to raise it to the second power, and then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side because this is a balanced equation, right? This is the math teeter-totter, seesaw, whatever you want to call it, and we need that, right? We need to get this balance. So let's do that. So when we square this, what this does is this wipes out the radical, and it gives us x plus 2 equals 9. So we're not done, obviously. We do have one more step. So it's just basically adding one more step after, you know, you get rid of the radical. So subtract 2, just do what you know, just subtract, right? And you get 7. All right, and so now we're going to check and see if this is an extraneous solution. So in other words, does it work? Okay, and so in order to do that, I will switch to annoying red, and we will say this is our check steps. All right, check steps. So I'm going to put this 7 in the radical here. So 7 plus 2, so I substituted that in for x, and then you just write the rest of the equation, and we're going to see if this side right here, does it equal that side, right? That's the question. Does this equal this side? Well, square root, this becomes the square root of 9 because 7 plus 2 is 9. You can just drop those parentheses and add those up, right? And then you have 4. We're just copying down. Now let's simplify this next, right? That's our next step. So that becomes 3, all right, plus 4 equals 7. And then 7 does equal 7, right? And that's a good thing. So this thing checks out, all right? So that is literally what you're doing. We added one more step. So not anything that you haven't had to deal with before. This is not crazy, and you're totally capable of it. So we will have another video and or another 2 videos for this, and then we'll have one for homework. All right, so we will see you in the next one.